Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Michael Tingsager. We at Hospitality Mavericks are here to inspire leaders to create heart-centered and profitable businesses from the inside out, the kind that both employees and customers love and support. In this episode, I do not just have an amazing guest, but a true maverick. She dares to be different. She is an HR rule breaker, a creative HR coach, employer brand expert, and a very good friend of mine and Hospitality Mavericks. Nicole Antonio-Gadsdon is the founder of Banana Pepper HR, and she works with luxury hotels and estates in the Caribbean, building outstanding employee experiences, which in return boosts the customer experience and in the long term, very good for the shareholders. She has proven this approach many times with amazing brands as Virgin Limited Edition, Rosewood, and many more. Nicole is also the key reason why Hospitality Mavericks exist. She, some years ago, inspired me to co-write the manifesto for Hospitality Mavericks together with her. This manifesto can be found in our first blog on the website. And we will revisit this blog in this conversation. And we will also discuss if the prediction we had in that blog some years ago actually happened and evolved in hospitality. We also talk about how she has experienced the pandemic and what kind of leadership approach that is needed right now to make your employees feel safe. She gives her view on how the future looks for hospitality, the next 12 to 18 months, and some stellar advice for you to use to move forward. But before we tune in, why not sign up to our Maverick community newsletter and get great insights and leadership tools at hospitalitymavericks.com. And if you would like a chat with me, please book a slot on hospitalitymavericks.com. I love to talk with people that also wants to build a better future for people, community, and the planet. And also, feel free to join the new Facebook group, Game Changer, where you will find leaders who is on the forefront of what's going on in the hospitality industry. Don't worry if you did not get all this, there's links in the show notes. So grab headphones, coffee, notebook, and enjoy Nicole and her progressive thinking when it comes to build happy and resilient teams. Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast. And by accident, I've actually, every time I've listened back, talked about where we are right now. And we've been in this time in the pandemic where we talked about, survival, shitstorm, trying to thrive. And now it feels like we've gone into a new phase, and we are now here in early October. I'm very grateful today because we're going to have a conversation with somebody I'm trying to entice to come on the podcast for a while, but she's been busy, and she's also the reason why actually the podcast exists, or she's definitely big part of it, because what we're going to be talking about today was actually the manifesto for Hospitality Mavericks and why Hospitality Maverick actually was born, because I was not the only brainchild to this. There was a number of people involved, and Nicole, she was instrumental to these kind of things, keeping me accountable, I would say, in things I was doing. So it gave me great pleasure to welcome Nicole from Banana Pepper HR. And the most amazing things is, in this world we live in, you're not based in the UK, but you're sitting out in Antigua, where you are solving big people challenges and hospitality challenges right now. So welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you, Michael. That is such a great intro and so many nuggets for us to jump off in our conversation that's coming later. So hello, everyone. Hello, Hospitality Mavericks out there. I am so looking forward to us diving into what will be a very meaty conversation and a little bit of our shared history in hospitality mavericking. So it's great to chat to you.
Yeah, Nicole, I think I already alluded and you alluded. So we've known each other for, I can't remember how many years now. I think it's 6 years. I can't really put a precise date. I think it was 2015, if I don't remember wrong. And it was a random reach out from one of us. I can't remember. Well, we connected on LinkedIn just looking at your profile and what you was doing, I thought there's something about her I need to call you. And then we had a call, and you called me as I think I was walking through the streets of London. I was trying to get from one place to the other. I was a bit late, so I thought it's a bit rude actually. The first time I talked with her, I'm actually not sitting in my desk. But we had an amazing conversation because it took me half an hour that walk, and we spent way more than half an hour. There was like a connection at first point, and we found out we both were, born in the same star sign, with the Aquarius, and we believed in many of the same things, and from there on, we have developed this relationship over video. We met a couple of times when you've been in London, and we still have the visit to the Caribbean in the jar to do. We still have to pull that out at some point coming out there. But again, there was a little pandemic that actually put a blocker for that, because there was actually plans about doing it this year for us and my family. So yeah. So again, but now it's not all about me talking about. So Nicole, for people that don't know who you are, I would call you many things: HR rule breaker, creative HR, employer brand. You're an expert in luxury boutique hotels, especially in the Caribbean, but you have a huge background. For people out there that haven't met you before, can you give them the quick elevator journey of your journey and how it looks in today's world?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Elevator pitch in a nutshell. I guess the journey into kind of the unusual path, the windy path to what I'm doing now. And so after finishing, I guess the quick one is after finishing university, studied German and international studies at Warwick in the UK. And there came the pressure, your family kind of, you need to get a sensible job. And at the time, it was all about, you get into banking or you get into a management accounting firm or so forth. And I guess that I felt the pressure then. And at the time, there's graduate trainee schemes, and I joined a bank on a graduate trainee scheme. It was, Santander, Abbey National back in the day. And I knew straight away that absolutely I have no business being in banking. But it started a journey of kind of learning about people and about how an operation kind of runs or doesn't run. And an opportunity came up. I went through the ranks as a financial advisor, and and ultimately to the point of being a branch manager. And one of those stories where my area sales manager came to me and said, "I've got good news and bad news," and I was like, and he said, "You are my best, and you're also my worst." I was like, "Okay, fantastic." And the best being that your branch, anywhere that you go, the team is engaged, connected, the audit is prepped and ready, but you're killing me in the sales. Because I believed if you came in for a mortgage, you should leave with a mortgage. And of course, in those days, you should leave with many things in addition to a mortgage. You should leave with a bank account, a pension, a savings plan. So I didn't fit the mold. But he was gracious enough to say, but there's an opportunity. And it was one of those, a secondment in head office in graduate recruitment. Cut a long story short, I arrived on that secondment and I just knew, when you just like, oh, the heavens opened, the angels started singing, and I knew I had found what will be the start of my path into human resources. So again, I did not do the regular route. I became a recruitment specialist first, before becoming a generalist, and learned so much in high volume recruitment. As a graduate recruitment specialist for at the time, top 4 retail bank. Again, time to make moves. And instead of sticking in that route, at the time, employer branding and employee communication started to become a thing of interest. And I took an opportunity to join a recruitment marketing firm in the city. And it was at the point where, as I said, employer branding and knowing that employees have a voice and how to go out to market to attract top talent using marketing principles just spoke to me. So I joined a firm, a company there at the time, Barker's. And again, that was another moment of wow. And as you can see, these were breadcrumbs along the way for an unusual path. And I moved back to the Caribbean and straight into hospitality. That is our principal business and industry here in the Caribbean. My home island is Antigua, but I work up and down the region. And again, once again, it's the follow the breadcrumbs, follow the unexpected opportunities. And I fell into hotels, hospitality, but then in that, a niche of hotel openings. And for those of us, all of, and most of your listeners, Michael, the hospitality industry, that is our startup. Whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a hotel, those openings are our equivalent of entrepreneurial startup craziness and opportunities. And so I kind of ended up specializing by opening as lead HR, as HR director, either as an in-house director or subsequently as I set up my own consulting business, helping openings, doing openings, and for brands, as well as kind of independent boutique hotels. So that led to, I did set up my own firm, Aquarius, and over time, and we'll get into many conversations, I knew to be able to, whilst working for one company, but what we do and how we can help as many people, it is by going independent that I can, maybe help others with a more creative, people-centric, putting the human back in HR approach with a creative approach, stealing from marketing the ideas of branding and how we speak and how we engage to help leaders grow a business, but not by just saying it and sound bites, but truly with people at the heart of what they do. And hence now Banana Pepper HR, and hence speaking to people like you, Michael, and connecting.
You've been on an incredible journey, going from, one sector to the other. What is the difference between, because, well, first question, like being in banking and then going into hospitality? In my world, I've never worked in banking, but I can imagine it's so two different environments as well. What did you learn in that change?
Well, I think in terms of banking, I think I'm more focused on, yes, banking. It was obviously about kind of regulation, about, policy procedures, and, being beholden to your industry, but also to your, an ombudsman. So the importance of regulation and standards, and also of self-checking on via audits. The other flip side, though, so this was retail banking that I was in. So it's very much a sales. And from that, whilst I was a terrible salesperson in terms of banking policies and racking up, selling tons of mortgages and unit trusts and pensions. But what I did learn from that was about the sales process, about, when you are trying to get someone or to engage someone to purchase something, it's about tapping into their needs, their wants, their pain, and what they hope to achieve, and how you can use and tailor your, and sell your products and services to help people to achieve their goals. So the principles from that is kind of what I put in my, and it wasn't as, and now I'm speaking, it sounds like it was so deliberate. No, it wasn't. It's now with the benefit of hindsight in 2020, when you look back and see the things that you learned. But I absolutely learned out of that it's more highly regulated now, but it's a case of being true. If somebody wants something, I only give them what they need, and not necessarily what I, and it informed a skill set of learning, of sales, and you should carry forward, but it also informed a set of values that you continue to enforce and carry with you. So, and so I fell into, from banking and kind of, IT at the time when I was working for the recruitment marketing company, because that was the, .com. It was the first kind of boom. But from that is kind of the hospitality, and it is an industry like no other. Where we speak about it is still, absolutely, despite the technology, despite the platforms, despite everything else, it is absolutely geared to people. We may have denied it, we may not have honored it as much, we may have honored maybe customers and guests above maybe employees, but it is the one where if you are truly about growing a business through people, you cannot learn anywhere better than in hospitality.
Coming from some different sectors, you also, you work for some incredible brands on that journey. and just to mention a few of them, Rosewood, Virgin Limited, and Campbell Gray, and a number of independent as well. So you've already, also been quite diverse within the hospitality area and have a huge experience for that. And I think you're spot on with that thing. It is the people business, and maybe we have, as I say, forgotten to put people first for some decades, because that's actually what hospitality is about. But yeah, having that background and being in the middle of a hospitality people operation as we entered into this pandemic, and what happened for you, and since we met, you've been through so much out there. It's not only the pandemic, but you've been through a couple of hurricanes as well.
Yeah. Um, I tell you, I'm laughing because, as you said, it's just it has been an incredible kind of set of events to this point, and of course, we will speak more about it. The kind of the pandemic effect, as you said, is how has this affected when we first, as you talked about hospitality mavericks, when this idea started bubbling between us. We were speaking at the time when Antigua, the Caribbean, which is 2017, was hit by two massive Hurricane Irma and Maria, massive Category 5 hurricanes. Who knew kind of crisis, kind of phenomenal change type of response in terms of HR and in terms of business was starting to become more of a thing. And then fast forward to this pandemic, what did it mean? My gosh, Michael, on like so many of us and your listeners too, and our community, it's hit us on every level possible in terms of personally, professionally, business, in terms of our thinking of how we run our lives and so forth. So for me, I had started a process of rebranding my own business. It was Aquarius Human Resources Consulting, and the previous year, and ready, primed, Banana Pepper HR, absolutely focused on the niche of luxury hospitality, and 2020 on the books, particularly in the Caribbean. There were a set of luxury hotel openings, was going to be, it just looked like it was going to be a bumper year. So I was primed to leave my current assignment, which is, I went in after Hurricane Irma, which was going into Necker Island, Richard Branson's Necker Island, to help reopen Necker Island after the devastation of Hurricane Irma, create a fit-for-purpose business HR function, and then help to launch a private estate called Mosquito Island as well. So I was ready. It's new openings. Oh my goodness. And then the pandemic hit. And I tell you, I don't think my head and all of our heads have not stopped spinning since. For us in the Caribbean, really, it kind of truly hit us. It was hitting us from February of this year and really slammed us from March. And so my business plan, it was lovely on Google Docs. Basically, I've just ripped that up. And now, ceremoniously over a scotch and coconut water, and thinking, we need to rethink this now. And what can I salvage from the plan? What can I use your phrase that you often use, a reset or pivot from openings? And how can I transfer that into something else that can help the hospitality community here, help my business, and to serve more? So it has, borders have closed here across islands. And personally, we have, from employees being dispersed and having, and unable to get back from holidays, my own family on other islands, unable to get what you can see another island, like a 20-minute plane ride, and you literally cannot get. So, and, and health. So we all have our kind of corona stories. But for me, that 2020 plan is being rewritten on the fly right now.
One of the things we often talk about is, leadership behaviors, traits. What do you think is needed to bounce back? And also within that, not only keeping businesses alive, but actually also keeping, humanity at the forefront. Because I think that's one of the things we talked about before, the importance about care.
Absolutely. I've been thinking about this a lot, and also observing, trying to be a lot more present and observing. We don't only have to, look at our social media feed. and or look at the on the TV right now on our leaders, our political leaders, or our leaders in our community. And you don't need to go to school to study it. It's the lessons are being played out right in front of us, and probably in your own companies, and organizations as well, whether you are the leader or whether you are a core employee. You mentioned a key word of care, and I want to kind of step back a little bit. I think the first thing, it's yes, traits, but it's two things. I think it's that connection between your intent. I think first off, a leader, you need to decide what kind of leader that you want to be. And I think also we all say, leader, and we automatically attribute a kind of a positive to leadership. Not necessarily. You could, between Mother Teresa and Adolf Hitler, a leader is still a leader. How they behave, right, and the impact on their those that follow them, and is the issue. So I want us to first, it's that connection between your values and your action must be in absolute alignment. It's now become a case of for individuals to, if you do not know, these are, oh gosh, another cliche, unprecedented times. And I think you are forgiven by your community if you are genuinely do not know, and you are looking to find the way. I think it's very hard to come back from an ethics fail. That if you are proven to be not true to your values, it is very hard to come back from that. So it's that alignment between your values that you state, or your company states or represents, and your action. And you mentioned about care, and I wanted to focus on, it's time for what we have tiptoed around, but it's about those super skills. It's those values and behaviors that cannot be until, artificial intelligence or the robots can replicate that. And at the moment they can't. It's what makes us absolutely human. It's our humanity. And that is the empathy, and then kindness, those little acts of kindness, and more now than ever as a leader to be showing that your own empathy to your kind of yourself and others, and those acts of kindness. It's critical to show that you care. Having great kind of maybe insurance policies and so forth, that's just the kind of the mechanics, but you physically stepping out from, behind the spreadsheet, the 50th version of your modeling of how to navigate the business, and being present amongst your employees. Now, I know with social distancing and physical distancing, it may not be possible to kind of physically do that. But the wonders of social media, the wonders of kind of the digital platforms that we have, it's to use that for more human connection. So use videos. It's those actions that actually demonstrate that you are checking in and tapping in to your employees and their cares and concern. These are things that going forward must inform how you talk about your vision. And again, we don't know where this pandemic is going to take us. And if we're true and honest, this is a great moment to be honest about what wasn't working before. And also, this is an opportunity to look forward to how we can lead ourselves and our business forward. So paint a clear vision. And we've spoken about this, you've read about it, and we know this, but paint a clear vision of the future. But leave it open to bring your employees alongside to help write what that future would be, the path to get there. And that's where the kind of the opportunities and the risks and the fear is in that kind of path to get to that. And it's that people want a leader that is follow worthy. So for me, are you follow worthy is the question that you should answer, and you should answer yourself, and you should ask the people that you have the honor and privilege to lead.
It's not like we have to agree on this. We're very aligned on this in a way. And that's not so much. So I totally agree with what is very interesting. What this situation have shown is like there's almost never been more black and white. So either you, in my world, you had the intent and did care during the last 6 months and will continue doing that, or you're in the other camp where you actually maybe the truth of how you operate would actually be exposed, because the pandemic just rips everything open. And this is maybe the time, as you say, that, or it should be the time, it should always be, even pre-pandemic or post-pandemic or no pandemic, you should involve your people in creating this plan forward, because that's the best way to inspire them. Of course, you need to create the picture of somewhere to go. You need to help to create that banner, but they even can be part of creating the vision. It's not only the plan I'm talking about, because actually that's where the best things are born out of. It's communities. And I think it's that, having that intent, and, and nobody's perfect in this as well. Even the leader with the right intent and the care has made mistake during this pandemic, because it's just been such an extreme environment. But again, I just think they are a bit further ahead of the curve when it comes to a better outcome. And it doesn't mean that everybody that has done all the right things, where you talk about intent to care and leadership, will win, because the pandemic is merciless. It's about how you recover from those things, that you don't lose faith in doing the right things and care and the humanity, as you said. Yeah.
This is a time of, and we all talk and we casually throw it around. We want more creativity in our organization. We need innovation to get us through this. And I think, whether it's, we can talk about, movements such as diversity and inclusion of Black Lives Matter and so forth. And we can talk about issues of how do we get more creativity in our organizations. Now, I think there's for the brave, for the courageous, this is where you look to gather people around you, whether it's through your hiring, whether it's through your promotion, whether it's you clearing the obstacles in the path within your organization, of bringing people who are valued and connect with the purpose that you have clearly stated and have shared the values, but they do not think like you. They may not even look like you. And it's about the only way that for this incredible time that we're in, that if you're wanting to get solutions or ideas of ways forward, as you were saying, Michael, it's going to take a thinking that perhaps doesn't come from you, because you're using the playbook that you've had and you may have used. So it's gathering different sources who will look at an issue or a situation or a problem or a challenge with a different lens, a different perspective, and therein may lie a solution that you couldn't think of by having your traditional, your conventional structure, groupings, or hierarchy around you. So often we kind of, oh my gosh, we need a policy for that. And first off, and this is where the HR rule breaker in me, I'm like, policies, no, it's another way of hiding. I think first off, it is before the policy, there's a difference between follow the law, absolutely, but about policy, we run to policy, a policy of, if we have a diversity or inclusion. No, if you're wanting creativity and innovation, it is look at of attracting different thinking, different feeling people around you. And that is your superpower. That is maybe your secret sauce in getting through this and coming up with creative solutions and ideas that you haven't thought of before.
The interesting thing here, Nicole, is that I actually had a conversation a couple of weeks ago on a webinar where we talked about the future of leadership, because there was this perception that we needed a different style of leadership. And then I said, well, in principle, there's nothing wrong with the leadership we already have established, because the role of a leader is to set the direction and purpose of the business, get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, build the culture these people want to be part of together with them, and then in a way get out of the way. That's the rules for a leader or a CEO in any business. But it's important that the intent to care has not, that thing has become so important. And it's actually something everybody has to double up on or down on, even though how much they practice it, because that's the muscle, care for your people in your communities, the planet. We need to solve bigger problems than just running our businesses. And that intent and that care has to be built in any business. If you want to have a pandemic proof business, or a business that really matters in the new paradigm. That's like how I see it. What is your view on that?
I agree with that. And I want to add another piece to that, because as human beings, naturally, when we think of care, we kind of default to it's a kind of a softness and a sense of, kindness as a kind of a weakness. Caring is the soft side. But caring also means making those hard and tough decisions. And we're at, when you and I have spoken before, we're at that very another tough crossroads of the second wave, and not necessarily in terms of spikes of cases in your country or in your community, but in terms of where we are right now, in terms of moving through a kind of living with a pandemic that could be with us for goodness knows how long. And this is where you have to make those tough decisions. And it may mean that you have to make individuals go beyond furlough and layoff and make people redundant. It may mean that you have to completely cut back on your business, change the model completely from one type of service and guest experience or customer experience offering to something else. And there will be casualties. And as much as you care and also conscious of people's personal situation and personal circumstances, you have to make those right decisions. So for leaders right now, which is really hard, and you see some leaders who are stumbling, that they're mistaking the care, the empathy, the kindness for being soft and not making those rigorous decisions. So there is a mistake of wanting to be liked as opposed to where you should be. That's nice, but it's more about wanting to be and should be respected as a follow-worthy leader, that people trust that you will take them through these very tough times, that you're going to make the right decisions, even the tough decisions, but to get through to the other side. So it's, as you said, it's that muscle. And I love that analogy. It's muscle. And when you build a muscle, Lord knows I've wasted enough money in gym memberships to know that you build a muscle, it is painful, as you build up that muscle.
Well, I call it the marginal gain thing. It's that if you try to put as much care in everything you do, a little bit all the time, and you will not succeed with everything. And again, I got a bit of and I really respected that. There was a guy on the panel that pushed it back and said, "But Michael, if you care about everything, you will destroy yourself." I said, "That's actually a really good point." I said, "But again, you need to know to yourself how much you can care before it starts to hurt you, because then maybe it's also your time to say, I need to inject from this situation." That's also leadership saying, I can't solve this anymore. I'm not able to follow through on this. It's not standing guard like you're having, you're driving an army across the enemy, because we've gone with those analogies that we are in a war. We need to come together more than ever. We need to unionize as humanity, as countries, there's no competitors in the new world. We're all in the same boat. We need to fix this together. Because then you need to ask for help if you're in that situation. And I think, again, being caring is also being caring for yourself and understand your own limits, because that's some of the best leaders I met on my journey as well.
Self-care and vulnerability are, in your leadership kit bag, are equally important as the traditional kind of ideas we have of leaders, of clear vision and creativity and innovation. That piece of, again, self-care, vulnerability for yourself, and being able to and knowing your bandwidth, knowing when to ask for help and knowing where to get help from, is important for you. Because again, to use that phrase that I'm feeling that more, I'm seeing it more follow worthy, because it gives others that you are leading, it gives them the signal that they can do that as well, and it's okay, and you will avoid things that can impact your organization, and your employees, even the stars, even your core team, that burnout, which is from mental to mental health, from a business perspective, it's just carnage. So if you're thinking about how you're going to survive yourself and your business, make sure that kind of self-care, a space for vulnerability, a space for trying new things, failing, unlearn, and learning new things is part of your journey, part of your story that you're taking forward for a thriving business.
It leads very well into the really reason why Hospitality Maverick exists and why we are having this podcast conversation today. Because, as you said before we went live here, 3 years ago we co-wrote an article about the Mavericks in the world that was shaking up the hospitality industry. As part of, we both prepared for this conversation, we were reading this article, and that I think it goes both ways to say that we were a bit like, wow, okay, yeah, actually lots of these things that actually is coming true, and the pandemic is really, fast tracking these things around. The Mavericks have become very easy to see. They stand out. They feed the hospital people. They do everything they can to keep their staff alive. They feed their staff. Even they go the extra mile for the community. Even though you look at them and think about, you can't have any more to give. You're on your knees as a business and so on, but you still keep on being part of this. Ways of being a maverick. You're part of this revolution of a different industry. And I thought we should spend a bit of time talking about this article and also hear a bit about your perspective of what you're seeing as well, compared to some of the things we found as we were studying Mavericks, because this was what we were observing at that point, what Mavericks were doing.
Yes, I mean, we've got to dive into that. There's definitely a goosebumps kind of moment looking at this article. I think we covered many of the key things, and I hope, and we've kind of evolved, in terms of what we were doing at that time, to share the article for those that are interested in your show notes. But we talked about kind of digital kind of revolution hitting. We talked about the kind of just the pace of innovation. We talked about guest and customer tastes and preferences, where before we'd focus all about standards and sequence of service and a kind of a standardized approach to delivering service. Well, absolutely the shift was moving towards an experience where the expectation is service is just a regular thing, whether you're a 2-star or luxury, whether you're a bistro or a full service kind of high-end restaurant. It is now about how you create that experience, and that meant that it's not what your marketing is doing, it's what your people, your employees are doing. And then also we touched on the expectation of employees, as part of that, working in the hospitality industry, looking at it as a genuine career and a lifestyle for those individuals who want to host and want to kind of create another way of creating this amazing experience in an industry which you touch everything. If you want to learn any discipline, business discipline, and yes, I'm a bit biased, but hospitality, you will hit from HR to marketing to managing finance to customer experience. You hit everything in hospitality. So change was coming through. One thing two that we didn't hit on, Michael, which is we touched every other kind of perfect storms that were on the way, but we didn't mention hurricanes, which was, for me at the time, we were just off, as I mentioned earlier, 2 Category 5 hurricanes had hit the Caribbean, which had already kind of forced a rethink, starting the process of a rethinking of how we bounce back or bounce forward from disaster. And then, of course, also, we never saw a pandemic coming. So I think it's what has happened is just amplified the good or the obsolete, the obsolete and not so good, as well as the good things that were happening that perhaps we're not gaining the traction because the old guard or the comfort of doing what you've always done was still, hanging on and clinging on for dear life.
Yeah, and I think what I was reflecting on was really reading as well. And I totally agree. We didn't see those things, and I don't know. I was thinking today, especially with my own focus, and think, why didn't we discuss climate change? But again, and also there's another, there's a catastrophe before climate change. I'm, probably even more scared about than climate change, because we can't deal with climate change if we don't tackle this one, and that's the mental health, of ourselves or the people around us. This, it's not just saying you need to become more resilient the next couple of months. It's actually, how do we actually make sure that your mental health and others are balanced, again coming back to care. And it's one of my big concerns, that not only from an industry point of view but also from a humanity point of view, how are we going to deal with that, as we are locked and we can't move around. It doesn't feel like we're in power, we're in control. How do we make sure that the mental health of people comes out on the other side? Because we can't build that new future without healthy minds and bodies.
Yeah, correct. Right now, on that kind of topic, and I'm sure for those businesses that are still hanging in there, or are also, there's some that are doing very well right now, because they have adapted. But going forward, where perhaps employee wellness, health and safety, I mean, I think in hospitality, we know that health and safety, food safety and hygiene was a thing. It was absolutely mandatory, whether, was part of the way you built, your operation. If you didn't have those proper food safety and hygiene and health and safety standards in place, you fail an inspection or you have a disaster in your business, and your business could literally be shut down. So that understanding of health and safety was there, which I think in terms of hospitality kind of businesses and professionals, that muscle in terms of responding to COVID, right, we need to amp up our health and safety policies, procedures, and standards. But as it relates to, hand washing, the distancing maybe in your restaurant or in your bistro or in your the kind of how we sanitize in terms of the hotels, housekeeping, how you kind of strip down and turn a room. So I think that kind of thinking has been extrapolated into, yes, we get health and safety and hygiene and standards. The piece, though, as is the psychological safety and marketing now. Our colleagues in marketing, for those businesses, particularly in the Caribbean, as the borders reopen, because our borders were shut down, like so many countries in the world, as some borders in the islands reopen, and in the Caribbean, tourism and hospitality is our bread and butter. But with that, a lot of in our industry are scrabbling to meet the guests and the travelers' expectations for safety, space, and a kind of a well-being. We will buckle on our knees in this industry if we do not align our product and our kind of guest-facing brand promises with our employee experience promises as well. Because the same requests that the guests and travelers are saying, I'm looking to travel, I want to travel again, but I need to feel safe. I need to have a clear roadmap to get to you, if it means I have to have the various COVID testings and the quarantine and whatever else. The same thing as we reopen our businesses, whether in the Caribbean or in the UK or in anywhere in Europe or anywhere in the world, that clear roadmap to welcome back our employees has to be clear, and it has to address that physical safety in the workspace and then also the psychological safety as well. It's no longer a perk. Mental health, it's just a campaign. You do it for one day. No, it actually has to be part of your strategy for individuals to feel safe. So one of the things kind of, as a practical example, I am still working with kind of Necker, Island and Mosquito. One of the key things, working with the people team there is, we're all familiar with orientation, onboarding for newbies. Right now, our focus there is about a reboarding for those and I'm taking a deep breath, for individuals, the kind of sounds terrible, like Remainers, who have still in employment in whatever shape, maybe they've been furloughed, maybe they've had reduced hours, they have seen colleagues maybe made redundant or so forth. But we're about to, maybe if you're about to reopen your doors, a reboarding for them, which if you have changed as a leader, you have changed, if your business has had to change, the strategy and the focus has had to change. You have to gather people around that new purpose. You have to fulfill the promises of, here's how we are making you safe. Yes, we are doing for the guests, but this is also what we're doing for you. It's mirroring and marrying and aligning your product and your guest brand with your employer brand and your employee experience, and making sure that path is clear. And when it goes wrong, it's not an if. When people are struggling and stumbling, you have not just your normal health insurance, but you actually have a program and an approach of, where can I go to for help? And it's not necessarily for, and for employees, this is where we all have to grow up a little. For anyone who's offended hearing that, I do apologize, but not. But it's about like self-directed learning. Do not wait for the employer to give you this. I think we, as the employer, we give the framework of where you can help yourself, but where at the point it becomes difficult or you've run out of options, this is then what we do for you. This is the systems that we have in place. So it's moving into a different direction and an emphasis and amplifying this particular aspect as part of your business strategy and growth and change.
That's again is a great example of, what we talked about before, care for people, the best you can do in that situation to create a safe environment. I think the word safe you said was quite, key here, because we all want to feel safe in this. We all, everything in our wheel of life, if we should take a bit of an LLP, most people know the wheel of life. You have your relationship, you have your finances, your career in there, and all the 7 parts of your life, and all that has just been thrown. It's just been broken to pieces, and nobody feels safe when you can't control these areas. You will maybe have hours where you feel very brave, and I definitely how I feel. Some days I just feel like, yes, bring it on, and other days I just think I just can't take it anymore. I don't know where I'm gonna find the energy to do this. And the interesting thing, when we looked at these mavericks, as we talked them about, called them, when we did this, we wrote the manifesto for, what I call the manifesto for Hospitality Mavericks, is that exactly if you've seen them during the pandemic, and I actually went back and looked at some of these people we've looked at, like Sweet Green in the US. I've been back looking at, they're doing all these things. They're socially minded. They go out and do things for the community. They still want to make an impact that's beyond the pandemic. They think beyond the pandemic. We still need to be here after the pandemic. So therefore we need to think about what we do now. We reflect when we do that. They are purpose driven. They go back to their purpose. They reinstate their purpose and their values. They don't talk about how they make money and save the business. Talk about how can we actually leverage our purpose to survive in this situation. And then, they're very disciplined. Again, they're very, as an organization, they don't understand. We talked about scale at that point, but they're very disciplined to get that balance right between keeping as many people as possible, but also, the reality of that you have to make maybe somebody redundant to get the philosophy on the other side. I wouldn't call it the company. It's almost the philosophy, the idea needs to survive to build a better world after this. So yeah, I just think it's so interesting. Many of the traits we saw, many things, we see them in live in this situation, and it works. And I think that if you read the article, I will let people do that. You will see there's examples of other companies besides Sweet Green. That's a great example of this, and they will, I hope, and they will probably survive on the other side. We mentioned Danny Meyer as well in that conversation.
Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, you go ahead and talk about Danny Meyer.
Well, no. This, I know absolutely. It's one of your. We share the kind of the just an admiration for how even before all of this, he set up his company. And again, truly, it's easy saying it, but when you hear, putting people at the center, his employees and the community in which every one of his businesses are set up at the center of what he does. And for me, one of the from Danny Meyer, it's again Maverick at the time of and unheard of in the hospitality industry. It was doing away with service charge. I mean, if you want kind of high emotion that has people kind of really coming out, even the most placid individual is touched service charge, whether it's in a hotel or in a restaurant. And the thinking behind that, which I was like, well, when I'm doing the kind of blow mind thing, is hang on a second, the service is what we're here for. That is, we're not paying anyone extra for service, because it then creates divisions between front of house and back of house. And I hate using back of house. I always say heart of house. And if you want to create a cohesive team that is absolutely geared towards delivering as a team an amazing, incredible customer and guest experience, service charge in the way that it was set up is something that is divisive. And I remember reading that and I was like, wow. And focusing on paying base salary, paying better. So people aren't focused on how can I impress, forget my colleagues, forget my team. How can I get in front of the customer so I can get that extra kind of service charge or that extra tip? It just completely changes the mindset by removing that element. Some folks will agree with it and others will absolutely hate it. But that's what being a maverick is all about. And that has me thinking going forward, that an element of that was is this something we should be looking at wider and saying perhaps, like a Danny Meyer on the service charge, but maybe like a John Lewis, take a steal from another discipline, steal from another industry, like John Lewis in the UK, where, all the employees are owners of the business. And is that something that we should be looking at? So take away the service charge. You are, as an employee, you have franchise, you are invested in the business being a success, not just drawing a salary, and you have a share. So this time is making me think of, oh my goodness, these different things that we could do to reinvigorate and take, our beloved hospitality industry forward. And two others that I've kind of kept an eye on of hoteliers that doing this kind of stuff. They weren't in our original article, but as I'm kind of watching now, Pig Hotels, Robin Hudson, just what they're doing in terms of sustainability, as you use the word, feeding the wider community and from the excess of their kitchen gardens and apprenticeship programs. But the intent behind it, it's like, wow. But still keeping, it's not cookie cutter. Each of those hotels has its own identity and feel. But the commonality, as you said, Michael, is about that kind of core purpose and values. So these are, I'm watching more and scribbling notes and stealing ideas to add to how we can move things forward.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about you can always add to that article. But again, to wrap it up in a way, again, I think that the closest I come to it, they care for people, community, and the planet. They're deeply down, they do that. And I can remember the first thing Danny Meyer said, and this is a great way to finish this part of the conversation. He said, how do you put people first when you have to put them out of their job? That was his question he asked himself and his board when they had to make difficult decisions. That's a very different intent than I need to save the business and we need to cut costs. That's a very different question to ask and a much more complicated question to ask and solve. That's in a way for me, just say, how do we actually come out of this caring both for our people, our community, and something that's bigger than us. It's not just about Union Hospitality Square. It's much bigger than that. Talking about the Mavericks, how do you see the world looks in the near future when you come to hospitality, let's say the next 12 to 18 months? I know you said before we don't know what's coming, but what is your educated guess if you're allowed to be the futurist here?
Oh my gosh, you're so doing that. This thing has just thrown us for a loop. I see, and I'll speak for the area that I kind of specialize in, which is kind of the hotel side more and kind of with the Caribbean in terms of what guests and the travelers are asking for. And again, the trend had started pre-COVID. all about, as opposed to large multi-hundred room properties, there was already starting a move towards whether it's an Airbnb or whether it's low density properties, from one end of kind of collection of cottages to maybe super villas of $40 million plus dollars kind of mega estates. That kind of I want to be hosted as opposed to served was already kind of starting. So I see more on, whether it's a Airbnb, whether it's a small kind of guest house, but it's about creating more of a community feel as opposed to packed tightly, orchestrated, all inclusive. That feeling of bespoke, of an experience that I can be as hosted as much by the employees and by the team, or I'm given a framework in which maybe I don't have a chef all the time, but maybe it's, a chef prepares or it's set up and then I and my family or my guests, myself, create the experience ourselves, but within a framework. It's about understanding of more and more guests wanting to hear the stories of the individual employees. So the kind of a more kind of clinical cold standards where employees are you could not or were not encouraged to bring your own personality and your kind of your own story into the mix of how you deliver that your share of the guest experience. No, customers, guests want to hear stories and exchange stories. So how to navigate that as with HR and as a leader and a manager, that somebody remains personable, human, but yet professional, is something that the kind of the gray area and the blurred lines, and to help individuals to straddle that, be the professionalism but not the coldness, to share your stories, but not in an inappropriate way that it could be seen to be kind of soliciting, additional tips or whatever else. And it's about understanding and learning more genuinely about the community. My experience, what I'm paying, the dollars or the pounds or the euros that I'm spending, how is that going not just to the hotel or the restaurant? How is that impacting and also being used in the community? That feel good and feeling that I may not be out there kind of charting a course and going, in the Amazon to save the rainforest, but by what I'm doing through the experience and the dollars I'm spending and my interest is actually contributing to uplifting the immediate community, or, as you said, a bigger challenge, whether it's climate change, whether it is about a wider problem of sustainability. So these are the things I'm seeing that delivering regular service, it's a given, but this bigger picture of ensuring that our employees are able to create that part of the guest experience as well freely.
That demands, again, coming back to what we already talked about up to now, it really demands a different intent, again, from not only the customer journey and the employee journey. It's different approach to run a business, again, to get that end result and this output, because the complexity goes up as well. You need to put more power out to the front line again.
And therein lies the new frontier for leaders in our beloved hospitality industry.
So with that prediction, what kind of advice would you give? Because in the end of the program, Nicole, I always ask the guests to give like their top 3 advice to leaders out there that is looking for ways. The world we live in right now, it's bouncing back. But if you take what you're set up to now, the thing around caring, the intent, humanity, and then and connecting that with where you see your part of the industry is going the next 12 to 18 months. What 3 advices would you give to leaders out there right now? Because we all can start from now and tomorrow to do the right things, even though we've done things wrong in the past, we all make mistakes, but it's again getting on the track. What is your top 3 advice for them?
First off, it's for leaders. There is no bouncing back. There is no going back. And first, to use one of your guests who's been on your podcast, Dr. Vicky Barnes, radical acceptance. Absolutely. And I think for their leaders to accept there is no going back, and also to not peddle that false reality to their employees. So first off is that radical acceptance that there is no going back. So even we use the phrase bounce back. I think more it's a case of probably bounce forward, as you would say, reset and bounce forward. And with that, the next thing is relook at, there are individuals who say, oh, we'll just look at last year's business plan or the last 5 years business plan and tweak around the edges. No, it's now to relook at that. And first off, it is, a very hard look and an honest look. And I know this is very challenging for some leaders and executives because your own personal identity is so connected to how you had positioned and gone out to market and gone out to your employees. But it is to relook at your business purpose and to throw out what is not working and to salvage and to keep what is going forward. And the last point is get out in front of your employees. Be visible and show up. Stop hiding behind the spreadsheets and the war room of coming up with different plans. The answer and the journey to carry it forward is about presenting the new framework and the new vision or re-clarifying the purpose to your employees, and all of them, from the steward and the landscaper to your pot wash, or right up to your HR, to your marketing, right up to the very top. Burn down those ivory towers, and it's going back out to them and inviting them on the journey. If you're serious about inclusion, if you're serious about creativity and solutions, it is about getting out in front of the employees and inviting them to come up with some of the solutions and different thinking. And that is it.
It's super advice, and it's a bit like timeless, I almost feel, because no matter what, I think when I had Vicky on, let's start with her, like the radical acceptance, it's so important no matter where you are in life, because often we put meaning to things that's not actually worth the time to put meaning to. We spend so much time being frustrated about things we shouldn't be frustrated about, and we destroy our own and others' lives with that, in a way. So I think I took a lot out of that conversation, and if you haven't listened to that conversation, I would advise you to tune back to that. Vicky is a powerhouse of inspiration. And then you talk about this shared banner as well, the importance of creating that together. I couldn't agree more. Is something that I believe, something I try to practice, something I've told the people I'm working with and have worked with, this importance of having a shared banner, both for your employees and customers to understand what you're walking under. And it doesn't have to be to save the world. It could be small things, just making a great workplace is a great banner to walk under. It could be anything. But have a banner that's very clear that it makes an impact that's bigger than yourself, as you say. Nicole, as always, it's been an absolutely amazing conversation, and we can go on for hours. We could probably make a 10-part conversation here, and I don't know if the listener is up for that. If they're up for that, they need to let us know, and then of course we'll consider that. But I know we're going to be doing more stuff as we move into the future, but I'm very grateful that you took your time out. I know you are extremely busy still, juggling things, being involved in a lot of stuff and doing a lot of good out there. But I send you, in the meantime, all the power, energy, and love you need to keep yourself and your family and your loved ones safe.
And Michael, right back at you and to the Hospitality Maverick listeners, the same power, love, and resilience for us to travel through together this very fascinating time that we are in. And Michael, until the borders open fully and you can travel again, that cocktail on the balcony is on the cards.
Yeah, it has to be a Zoom one. I think yes, it is right now. But yeah, stay safe out there.
Stay safe too. Bye-bye.
Nicole, what a great conversation. Lots of insights and tools on how to build better employee experiences which boost the customer experience and is good for the bottom line in the long term. If you want to get inspired more about how to build great employee experiences, please tune in to episode 8, The Power of a Brandful Workforce with Julia Gomez, author and co-founder at Brandful Code. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please give us a like, share, rate, or subscribe to one of our channels. Tune in next time for another interview, and in the meantime, find out more about us and subscribe to the community and download free leadership tools at hospitalitymavericks.com. There will be links in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and be Maverick.